today's industrial connect session, we have Mr. Nadeem Najeeb, who is a professional, cybersecurity professional with 7 years of expertise in application security and risk management, and actually he's working in big four consultancy firms, and apart from this he's holding various certifications. One such prestigious certification is CISSP, and along with that he's holding the certification of CEH, Qualys Specialist Certification, AWS Security Fundamentals. And actually, Mr. Nadeem has started his career as a business development executive. Later, he worked on application security, modeling, threat modeling, privacy assessment, and business impact assessment, legal and regulatory assessment. And now he's product security specialist in Philips. So thank you so much for giving your valuable time, sir.
Thank you, Miss, for giving me a brief introduction. And hi, everyone. Hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yes, sir, you're audible. So, can you please kindly switch on your camera?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So, welcome, sir. So, I'll just hand over the session to you. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shashir. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is doing good and healthy. So we'll go to the deck. Let me present it.
Yeah.
Is it visible, my screen?
Yes. Yes, sir. Your screen is visible. It's reflecting.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that confirmation. Okay. So today we have this session with the topic of perimeter security through firewall. Okay. So before I start into the session, shall I ask each and every one of you who knows what is exactly a firewall? Can somebody help me to understand what is a firewall? Or you can also ping in the chat window. I can take it from there as well. Anyone? Students, you hear me, right?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay. Okay. Let me then give you a outview of what exactly is the firewall. Okay. So in the computer world, firewall is kind of a first line of defense, which means basically the first point of where the security starts in the information technology space when while we consider the cybersecurity or the information security. So firewall is that might be a device, or that might be a software itself which is configured to protect the resources. Okay, so the term perimeter here refers to the environment where we need to secure our data, or the devices, whatever we want to secure. That particular boundary which is coming under the firewall is considered as a perimeter. Okay, so just like an analogy where you have your house which is protected with a gate, right? So that intruders won't come into your house, or the people whom you know or how they can open the gate can only come inside our home, or whichever the person which we allow should only come to our home, right? So that kind of role is played by the firewall. Okay, so the perimeter means the fencing which is around the uh, environment which we need to protect. Okay, so I hope everyone is clear with the terminologies what I mean. Okay, so yeah, I'm going into some theoretical parts first. Okay, later in this session we'll have the hands-on session, and you'll see the console of a firewall, how rules are defined in the firewall, and how we can block certain IPs as well as the applications within a firewall. Okay, all those things we'll come to know in the session. So, as I mentioned, perimeter security, or the boundary security, basically is the first line of defense of any system, okay, which is designed to monitor or avoid or limit the access of any unauthorized intruders or applications or whatever coming into the secured area. Okay, so a firewall is such a device which one of such kind of a device which enable the perimeter security. There are hundreds of devices, or there are hundreds of other enablers, like a intrusion detection system, or intrusion prevention system, or a proxy kind of environment. All those are there. So but firewall is one among them, which is very commonly known to everyone. Even in our Windows system also, we might have seen sometime pop-ups coming in stating that your firewall is off. Okay, so firewall is a very common terminology or a technique which is used to protect the trusted boundary or the organization. Okay, so in most of the infrastructure, what we have seen is a firewall is placed in front of the internet, or which we can say like, if we consider an environment or an organization, or example for taking your university itself, the university has a network, right? So anything outside the university network, which means the devices which, or the network which they have created outside, inside the university, is a trusted zone, or we can say that that environment is well equipped and protected. Okay, so anything outside that, basically you are trying to access the university website, so that the request is coming from the outside, right? So that is considered to be a unsecure space, okay, or a untrusted boundary. Okay, so in between this we place a firewall so that we can protect our trusted boundary, which is the university website and the servers. We can protect with the help of a firewall which is placed in front of the connections which you are establishing from a untrusted network or an internet network. Okay, so the main intention of why we need to place a firewall is to prevent the attacks from the attacker accessing your servers, or trying to inject any malicious kind of packets into your network. Okay, if you look at the diagram here, you can see that, as I mentioned, there are a lot of areas, or the untrusted zones where the request comes to our particular infrastructure. Okay, so those connections first comes to the firewall, which is the first line of defense, and the firewall decides whether that connection has to be given to the inside boundary, which is the LAN you can find here. Okay, or vice versa, you can think about it. Okay, so all the messages or all the packets leaving or entering inside the network is monitored with the help of a firewall. Okay, and based on the firewall rules, we define whether that particular packet has to be come out inside the trusted zone, or whether it has to be discarded at the point of firewall itself. Okay, then coming to the history of firewall, so once the computer world started, or people started using the internet, early days we were not much concerned about the security, right? So later what happened is, people started trying to access or hack the systems, and we thought about the part of security. Okay, so initially how connections are provided to the internet, through internet, is through the routers, which has an access control list, which act as a line of defense. Okay, so if you have a entry into your access control list which resides in the router or a switch, okay, then only you can establish a connection to that particular server or the environment. Now what happens is, due to the lack of security in the access control list, what happened is, we thought about an alternate solution, and that's how firewall came. Okay, the term firewall actually borrowed from the term firewall, which is used by the firefighters. So basically it's kind of like a protective barrier which used in front of the huge fire happening, so that it won't spread to the rest of the areas. Okay, that's how the term firewall came. Also, if you think about firewall, or if you heard about the term firewall, what comes to your mind first is that a red brick mortar brick fire with a, sorry, with a wall with a fire symbol in it, right? Even the Microsoft has used that kind of symbol. So it has a well established perception we get once we think about the firewall, right? Okay, so why we need firewall, or why security is required for the firewall? Okay, So there are few things which we need to consider while we secure our infrastructure, or while we secure our data within the environment. Okay, so as I mentioned, the enormous use of internet has given access to each and every people, and also the well knowledge about the how internet works and hacking stuffs. People started hacking or intruding into other networks, right? So in order to provide these things, we need to securely configure our firewall. So having a firewall doesn't mean that we have the security in place. Okay, it is how you configure that firewall and what are the rules which you configure so that you can protect your network. So some of the basic, or some of the basic requirements why firewall security is required is, one is remote login. So remote login means basically you are logging your university portal through your user ID and password, right? You are logging from some other part of the universe, or maybe within the same place or a different part other than your lab, or within the network of the university. So remote login basically is that concept. And once you establish remote login, there are few protocols like RDP is used, and those protocols are vulnerable to certain kind of attacks. Okay, so in order to prevent those kind of vulnerabilities which are in the protocols for remote login, we need to have a firewall which is well configured. Okay, then the sometimes the application hosted in the servers might have application backdoors which are created by the attackers, or maybe the development team might not have tested all those aspects, the code in a proper way, so that it opens a backdoor to the application. Okay, so basically backdoor means a alternate entry system. Just like if you go to a mall, you can see lifts are there, and in case of fire, you should not use lifts, right? You should take care of the you should use the staircase. Okay, so kind of like alternative methods which we can use to access the application are called backdoors. Okay, so that backdoors generally used by the developers or testers to fix the applications if it is very required. But these kind of privileges are exploited by the application attackers, or the attackers basically. And in order to prevent those things, we use a firewall as a first level of defense. Okay, then we know that we used to get a lot of emails which are kind of having malicious links in it. So SMTP related attacks also firewall can protect. Okay, then on top of it, operating system bugs also a firewall can prevent. Might be if the operating system like Windows is vulnerable to certain kind of viruses and all, then firewall can block all those connections coming from the external part, and we can work on the bugs in the operating system, and have a fresh updated OS, or whether we can have a secure OS in place. Okay, then denial of service, as you know, if we are flooding request to a server, what happens is if the server reaches beyond its tolerance, the server start uh, behaving in a way that it does not deliver the contents. The services should not be delivered. Okay, so denial of service can be prevented with the help of securely configuring the firewalls. Okay, so even viruses can be prevented with the help of firewalls. We'll see all these things once I started showing you in the console of a firewall how we can configure all those areas. Okay. So coming to the firewall types, we have generally two types of firewall. Firewalls can be distinguished into multiple types. But here, the first level of what I'm classifying the firewall is in terms of like the hardware or software. Okay, so typically we have hardware firewalls in place and software firewalls in place. Might be we have seen in data centers, or maybe in your lab itself, devices like this. Okay, which is flat surface device with a lot of space for the RJ45 connectors, or a internet jacks you can connect on this devices. Okay, and multiple wiring has been done. So these are firewall devices which is made um, which is hardware in nature. Okay, so a minimum hardware firewall which you can configure in your home also has a four interfaces. So these ports, which we generally say in English ports, or these holes you can say, are called interfaces in firewalls. Okay, so each and every interface we can configure as a separate VLANs. Okay, which means basically LAN networks within the firewall, and we can establish a large kind of setup, or a LAN setup within the firewall itself. Okay. Then there comes the second model is the software firewalls. So basically, software firewalls are firewalls which we install within our host systems, whether it could be a server or a personal laptop, or whether it could be a system, working system, PC. Okay, then we control the operation, or we create things virtually within this software firewalls. Okay, the intention remains the same, whether it's a hardware or a software. It varies from the places to place where we need to use the hardware, software, and whether we need to use a software firewall. Okay, so there are new generation firewalls which basically comes in place with the OS, or within the devices itself. They have an inbuilt software based firewall. Here everything is virtual. That's the only thing. In the hardware firewall, we can touch and feel that firewall, and we can manually connect wires. Okay, so coming to the working of firewall, so you might be wondering how firewalls provides us security, like what is criteria, or what kind of backend activities it is doing to make our environment secure. Okay, so now we'll go through the various mechanisms of firewall, like various categories of firewall. Okay, so basically firewall, you can from a high level, you can divide into three categories. Okay, one is the packet filtering firewall. So packet filtering, I'll come to that. Okay, then next is the proxy service. Okay, then the third part is the stateful inspection. Okay, so anyone who asks you question regarding firewall during your um, later time which you attend for an interview, you should explain you should definitely explain these three aspects of the firewall, like the packet filtering, the proxy, and the stateful inspection. Okay, so we'll come to the packet filtering firewall. So before I move into packet filtering firewall, let me check if somebody can give me an answer, or a random guess might be. Uh, so packet filtering firewall, which layer of the OSI model it belongs to? You can. I'll give you a hint. I believe you know all what is OSI and TCP/IP models, right? Okay, so packet filtering firewall. Okay, which layer it belongs to? Can anybody answer? You can freely unmute your mic and answer, or you can even drop a message in the chat window. Is anyone aware of it? The hint is there in the name of the firewall itself. Okay, let me know. Somebody put a chat.
Yes, yes.
Okay, just give me a second. That's right. So Asim and Shazia miss. That's great. So yeah. So the packet filtering firewall is basically the network layer. It belongs to the network layer of the TCP/IP or the OSI model. And as mentioned, packets are part of the network, right? Networks. Okay. So let me come to this part once again. Okay, so if you look at this diagram, as I mentioned, there are two zones you can consider. One is the external network, okay, and the internal network. Internal network we consider as a secure boundary, which is secured with the help of a firewall. Okay, so any packets coming into the firewall, okay, how this packet filtering firewall works is, this packet filtering firewall has already predefined rules which has been set by the administrator, the security administrator. And how it works is it analyzes the packet. So if you look at the structure of a IP packet, it has details like the source destination IP, source and the destination IP addresses. Okay, then the protocol which they use, like a TCP or UDP, and the data payload in it. Okay, so what happens is this packet filtering firewall checks the source and the IP address, and it matches against the rules which is predefined in the firewall. Okay, those rules might be kind of like only accept or implicitly allow or explicitly allow this particular IP range, kind of like that. We'll see that in the demonstration section. Okay, so we can define such kind of rules, and each and every packet going through this particular firewall is inspected by the firewall, okay, based on the predefined rule, and whether it decides whether the packets has to be allowed or it has to be discarded. Okay, so if the packet is allowed, then it will goes to the corresponding destination, and it do the request whatever it is, and it has to, if it has to go back to the client or the where the request is generated, it will go back. Otherwise, if the firewall is blocking, then immediately you will see comments like a destination unreachable, or packets are not being move to the internal network. You may not get the resources which you are looking for. Okay, so that's a basic understanding of packet filtering. So next idea is the proxy services. Okay, so you might have heard of the term called proxy, especially in your college days. Somebody says that I did proxy, okay, which basically means that the miss is taking attendance, and somebody impersonate and say that this particular number is available, or suppose my roll number is 1, and if my friend is 37, consider, then my friend is unavailable today, but he said to me, just give me an attendance. So I'll change my voice and I'll call them like, it's 37%, sir, kind of like that. So proxying is kind of like a hiding or an impersonation kind of act. Okay, so proxy service means here, so as I mentioned, we have two zones, right? One is the trusted area and the untrusted area, okay, which is the internet space. So hackers, if hackers or a malicious user who wants to hack a particular network, or maybe a device or a server sits inside a network, then he has to know the exact IP address of that particular server or service, whatever it may be, the device or whatever it may be. Okay, so as a security practice, we should not expose our uh, internal IP addressing or internal IP structure to the external world. Okay, so in order to have that kind of setup to abstract the internal IP, and but the connections has to be established to the outside network as well. Okay, in that setup, we use the concept of proxy servicing. Okay, or a proxy server, or a proxy firewall. Okay, a firewall can act as a reverse proxy and a forward proxy. Basically means that it can accept a connection from the internet, and what it do or does is basically it hides that internal, it hides the external IP. It stores in the firewall table or a proxy table, and it maintains a table where they map that this particular IP address is communicating with an internal IP of this. Okay, so that internal IP address, which is again communicating back to the proxy server with the corresponding request, has to be masked here in the proxy service, and only a external IP which is designated by the firewall is visible to the external world. So basically, if you're looking from a outside perspective, you will only see the firewall IPs. You won't see any IPs which is part of a service or a part of a infrastructure component within your organization to the outside. That's how you protect your inside IPs from the external world. That's where you need a forward proxy and a reverse proxy concept. Okay, so with this diagram, you can understand. So you have a company intranet, which is basically your company internet, which is protected with the help of a proxy firewall. Okay, and what happens is the connection which is coming from the external part. Okay, this particular reverse proxy or forward proxy firewall uh, takes that IP address, okay, it stores in a table, and what it does is it maps that external IP to a internal IP here, and the internal IP which does the operation comes back to the firewall, and the mapping is done here, the reverse mapping is done here, and the connection, the request is being served to the external world. But if you look, if you try to identify or enumerate the IP here, what happens is you will get only the firewall IP. You won't get any IP IP hierarchy which is part of the internal network. Okay, that is how a proxy firewall is used in the security space. And the next firewall, which is the stateful inspection firewall. Okay, so stateful inspection is kind of like a proxy firewall only. So here the major thing is each and every state. Okay, state means all the connections establishing to the firewall. Previously, we have seen packet filtering, right? So the packet filtering firewall, each and every packet is assessed for a malicious content. But here in the state based firewall or stateful firewall, what happens is each and every state is, or each and every connection is checked with a particular database, okay, of signatures to understand uh, whether the content which is there in the whether the packets coming in are malicious or not. Okay, they maintain a state table, and and it that particular state table act as a security mechanism here. Okay, so this are the three different kinds of firewalls which we normally see in the environments. Okay, so next I'll take you to a demo session. Okay, before that, do you have any questions,
Yes, sir, I'm having a question.
please?
Sir, can you elaborate this more? Stateful inspection?
Okay, sure. So, in the stateful inspection means in the previous what I talked about the packet filtering, right? So, packet filtering, each and every packets which is going through the network is monitored, irrespective of its IP address. Then, what is the content in the data, whether it's a malicious data or not. So, what happens basically is if we implement that kind of firewall, it is kind of like you can think as an analogy. Have you ever traveled in a toll road? Where you have to pay the tolls, right, manually before this RFID tags are being placed. What we have to do is we have to stop our car manually, then we have to give the amount, and then we have to go. So that condition, what happened is the queue within the toll has increased, right, because each and every person takes some time thereon. Okay, so that you can think as a packet filtering firewall. But what happens in the stateful inspection firewall means, so here, each and every packet is not explicitly filtered or done by a deep inspection. Okay, the packets are transferred. Okay, then these packets in the back end, what happened is the contents of the packets are just um, verified against a database of signatures, basically like the IPS or the IDS systems work, right? You have a set of signatures, or you have a uh, trusted kind of IPs, or the packets or the payloads you set on the firewall, and the packets are actually passed, and later only they will check for whether it's a malicious or non-malicious kind of. Then based on that, they take an uh, action on it. Okay, so the advantage of the stateful inspection is each and every packet which is transferred, they keep a table with the state, whether it's passed or not, kind of like that. Okay, and the greatest advantage here is the speed of the connection would be high. So if you place a firewall in front of your server, which is a stateful inspection, compared to the packet filtering, you can reach the server with a minimum time duration. Okay, the filtering one, which takes a lot of time, because each and every packet is um, each and every packet is inspected there. Okay, so that is a basic difference and the comparison between the stateful and the packet filtering firewalls.
So one more question.
Sure.
In the manual inspection, like stateful will be kind of an automatic thing,
Automatic in the sense?
where
Yeah,
automatic in the sense signatures will be verified and it
signature.
will be passed,
Correct.
right? But in the manual inspection, like if a hacker comes inside the network, sir, I'm unaware of one thing before I ask the question. Are the packets encrypted or not?
That depends how you configure the client. Basically, if the server has SSL, suppose you are establishing connection from the client to the server, right? If the server is configured in such a way that it only accept the encrypted connection, or once you establish the initial handshake with the client and the server, okay, you might be aware of how TCP/IP works and how SSL or TLS works, right? So
Yes,
first
sir.
they establishes connection, and server provides the certificate details to the client. With that certificate only, client encrypts and sends the data. Okay, so to answer your question, whether the packet is encrypted or not, it depends on the configuration or how the server setup is being made. Okay, if you're not thinking about these concepts, if you ask me, like, all the packets are encrypted, yes. See, for firewalls, they only check the it depends on the firewall, to be precise. If you're talking about the L3 firewall, which is a network kind of normal firewall which we see, okay, there they only check the IP, source destination, and type of the data. Okay, so they won't go into depth. And if you look at the if I come back here, I'll make it clear. This packet structure. Okay, so see, they will only check these initial two fields. Okay, IP and this a particular capsule. Okay, TCP or UDP, all these things. But if you are thinking about a firewall which is placed in front of an application, which is basically called as an application kind of firewall, then only within the firewall they decrypt the SSL or TLS certificate, and the application firewall only checks the data whether it's a malicious or not. Does that answer your question on the encryption part?
Yes, sir. And as this is a cybersecurity thing, so
Okay.
what if the data gets replicated? Like if you copy the data, wouldn't it be a data theft thing?
Sorry, can you bit more clear on that? Where you copy the data, and what do
Yeah,
you mean by that?
if the packets are going from, I take an example, from the client to server, particular data is moving on, right?
Okay.
If what if I do the MIMT attack, man in the middle attack, and I
Okay.
replicate those packets? So can I trace the data out in that case?
Yes. So if you have configured the firewall for MITM or a DDoS kind of attacks, so what happens is we can configure in a way that the number of packets or the limit, the threshold can be defined in the firewall. Okay. So at a time, if you think the same similar kind of packet coming at multiple times, then the firewall has the capability to block that. It is a particular configuration which you have to set in the firewall for the DDoS protection.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
So even I have a one question. As we
Sure.
know that if a website is protected by some kind of firewall, like cloud safe firewall, so
Mm-hmm.
user have to visit the website by crossing the that layer of firewall. That
Yeah.
first we get the IP of firewall, and after that we will go into a origin IP of a server.
Correct.
So if what if somehow get the origin IP of a server and manage all of the kind of attacks, then what kind of I mean security misconfiguration is there?
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay. So your question is more like, so if you're
because
connecting, yeah.
yeah, I will take an example of my own
Mm-hmm.
self. Recently, in this month, I reported one security misconfiguration on a Discord server. They
Okay.
accepted my vulnerability, and actually the security misconfiguration is that I can able to get the origin IP of a server
Mm.
of one of their domains, which is
Good to know.
behind the Cloudflare. But I'm not able to figure out that what exactly the security misconfiguration is there.
Okay. 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 So you are trying. to ask me like what should be the exact root cause for that misconfiguration, or
Yeah,
what exactly is that misconfiguration.
because their
Okay,
IP, origin IP is publicly
correct.
available in Shodan and census.
Okay, so the misconfiguration there would be they have not enabled a proxy kind of setup. Okay, or as you mentioned, it's a Discord server, right?
Yes.
Okay, so might be they don't have an enough security in place for that. That might be the reason. Even I'm not sure how you have enumerated all those things. Okay, but yeah, if as a security consultant, if you ask me how can you remediate this, then you can suggest them like you can place a proxy server, or you can enable natting. Okay, you know the concept of NAT, right? Network address translation. Okay, that works in the proxy server. Okay, so network address translation, if they have enabled it or configured in such a secure way, then you won't be able to expose the inside IPs, or you won't be able to see it when you do a grabbing. Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions? Anyway, congrats for reporting such security vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
It is indeed what is expected from each and every one of you as a
Yeah.
security
One
student.
more program is pending. They are not responding.
Okay, let's hope for the best. Keep up the good work, and I should appreciate it, and everyone should try such kind of activities in your younger days. Yeah. Okay, now let's move into the console of a firewall. Okay, I thought like I should explain how a firewall is set up and how you can set up a lab and all those things. But the challenge here is if we come to some um, kind of issues, it takes some time to troubleshoot. So I have set up a lab for this. Okay, so as I mentioned, we as a security administrator, the person has to configure certain rules in the firewall, right? So how they access these firewalls, whether it's respective of hardware or software, is through the console of a firewall. Okay, just like how we log into the firewalls. Okay, basically a Facebook page kind of setup. Okay, so this is the console of a firewall. Okay, let me switch on my firewall first. Okay, so how I have set up this lab is kind of like I have installed a VMware workstation. Most of you might be familiar. Okay, then we can download the. I use here a 40 gate or 40 net firewall, which will be available as evaluation version for free of cost. Okay, you can download it from the Fortinet website, and there they have the steps to install the firewall, how it can be installed. Okay, then I have also set up one PC, normal Windows 7 desktop for the demonstration purpose. Okay, so my firewall is booting up now. Okay, here I have to give my credentials as an admin. One second. Okay, I provided my credentials. So basically, the administrators has two types of environment where they can configure these firewall setups. Okay, so this which we are seeing right now is a command line kind of setup. Okay, CLI basically we call. Okay, here the thing is it is not a graphical interface, so you have to be familiar with the uh, codes here or the scripts here, so that you can work on the firewalls easily. Okay, other than that, if you are more interested in GUI, then you will get a console like this. Here you can log in with the username and the password, and you can log into the firewall. Okay, So it has a lot of features. I'm just walking you only through certain very very important features, and this particular demo session is intended for you to be get motivated and do this kind of activities and explore more into this kind of setups. Okay, do it your on. Okay, just a motivator or just a initial spark which I'm giving you guys. Okay, so once we have this console, we can define anything on the firewall like the rules, all those things. Okay, so first the thing which you have to define when you have a console is the interfaces. So you might remember in that diagram there are areas for connecting the LAN cables, right? Those are called interfaces. So the first thing, basically interfaces are the connection establishment bridges, or you can say. Okay, so the first thing we need to set up is the interfaces here in the firewall. So in the network tab, if you go to interfaces, okay, you will see this particular model of the firewall has 23 interfaces, but as of now I have only configured 4 interfaces for the demonstration purpose. Okay, and the first port which I have defined already for the admin user, this particular CS GUI kind of setup, I configured this port. Okay, so only administration activities I prefer on the first port. Okay, then what I have configured is creating a port itself is very easy. It's not a big task. Everything is here. Okay, you can just need to click on this. Okay, you need to give the name of the port, the name of the interface. Okay, you can provide a alias name, a smaller name. You can select it like it's a VLAN or a aggregator, or a VLAN would be the normal interface. Okay, all these things you can create by filling these details in the port, and you should always check whether it is enabled. Okay, this is how you create an interface. So here I'll show you. I have already created 4 interfaces. So how I have created 4 interfaces is first port I have explained, it's an administration purpose. I have created the second port which I have made it for a LAN connection. Basically you can think that this particular IP range, if you look at 192.168.10.1, I have created a not a VLAN, it's a LAN kind of setup. Okay, for accessing within the created basically a network, you can say. Okay, with this particular IP address, so any machines coming under this should communicate to the firewall through this particular interface. Okay, now I have created a WAN port. Basically this IP address is something which comes from my ISP. Okay, so I have configured this IP address here. Okay, so that your firewall gets a internet connection. Okay, then the outside port which I created, if I want to get a data from VLAN and send it to outside using this particular port, I can assign a network here as well, and that's how this output port, or sorry, port 4 or the interface 4 is created. Okay, so if we go inside this, I'll show you what exactly it has. Okay, so name I have provided as it is, like you can type it here. Okay, then alias also LAN I provided. Here we have a role. Okay, whether it's a LAN, WAN, DMC. Okay, that we can choose. Okay, then here if you are getting IP address from your DHCP, then we can select this option. But here since I am having a lab setup only, so I choose for manual. Then I created an IP address range and then provided this. Okay, then you can put these administrative access things like IPv4, which kind of protocols you can access. You can select whichever you need. Okay, here I have selected everything. Okay, then this receive LLDP and transmit LLDP, you can make it as enabled. Okay, then DHCP status I made it enabled here. The reason why, as I mentioned, this within this with this particular IP range, I have made a small kind of network, right? So this particular port, any device which is connecting to this port will assign a IP address. Okay, so for that purpose, DHCP I have created. Okay, then basically device detection, all these things you can enable or disable. Even security mode you can enable or disable. Okay, as of now I have just disabled it. Okay, then status, you should always check whether it's enabled or not, then you can save the settings. Okay, so you will see the settings here. Okay, the next important thing here is the policies. Okay. Firewall, the basic how it works is based on the policies, right? So I have created one policy here, which is kind of like pressing this click create new. Okay, you can put the name here. Incoming interface, you can select which port the incoming you can select. Okay, then outgoing interface is which one you can select from the list of ports which is available. Okay, the source, you can put all, or you can these are kind of like applications or services which is available here, so you can put all, or you can, as based on your requirement, you can mention it. Okay, destination also you can put anything specific or explicitly or implicitly. Okay, then here the service also you can choose whether it's an HTTPS or HTTP kind of. Okay, then here we can see inspection modes. Okay, flow based and proxy based. Okay, so if you select flow based, there is no need of any configuration. If you select proxy based, this NAT kind of concept is enabled, and your public inside IP or your private IP would not be displayed to the outside. Okay, then within this rule, so what you can do is you can enable security profiles, which is what we look for. Okay, whether we need to have the antivirus in place on the connection, so that any malicious kind of a signature comes, it will be scanned. Okay, then web filtering, basically URL filtering you can do. Then DNS filtering is kind of like, again, particular DNS can be blocked. Okay, if it is a blacklisted DNS, then you can block it. Application control, you can control the applications, whether it is accessible or not. If your corporate organization doesn't want social media applications, then you can block it. Okay, either through web filter, or you can make it through application filter as well. Okay, then you can enable SSL inspection or not. So somebody asked me that question, right? Whether you need whether the encryption happens there or not in the firewall. Again, if you configure deep inspection, then that packets will decrypt there, and inspection happens. For normal packet firewalls or stat kind of firewalls, we don't want to do SSL decryption there at the initial first line. If we are configuring this particular firewall as an application firewall, then we can enable this function. Okay, then this particular area for IPv4 DDoS. Okay, so here you can create a policy which basically providing the set of IP addresses, the threshold. Also, somebody asked me the question, if the packets are replicated or multiple packets comes, I can set a threshold here. Okay, then I can put block, monitor, whatever you want, you can put it here, and that's how you can create a rule. uh, Different policies. First you can create a policies, then what you do is you tag that policies to the firewall uh, rules. Okay, so here you can see I have tagged social media blocking, which is a web filtering. Okay, email block, which is a app filtering. Okay, then SSL inspection, it comes as a default, and antivirus also I have enabled it. So similarly, you if you explore this tabs, you can find options of antivirus. You can create policies on antivirus. You can create on web filters. I have created one on the web filter part. Okay, s- I wish to actually explain you or need to show you this particular URL is blocked, but since I'm using an evaluation version, which is a free of cost one, this particular features are not enabled. If you have a license only, we can demonstrate this. Okay, apologize for that. Okay, you can use any free antivirus, like a open source antivirus. Okay, I was not aware of the fact that evaluation version doesn't have these features. That's why I'm unable to show you this particular feature, how it is block, whether it is blocking or not in the host environment. Okay, so here you have the video filters. Okay, DNS, as I mentioned, all these kind of security measures you can configure within the firewall. Okay. Then one of the advantage of using a firewall or configuring a secure way is to use the firewall as a IPsec tunnel. So the connection which is going from the site to site, basically organization to organization, can go through this particular firewall at both the firewalls at each and every end, and that is through a private kind of a networking called the IP tunneling. Okay. And also as a additional security feature which the firewall provide, in terms of administrating the firewalls, you can configure different users. So here now I have the user as admin. If I go to the status, I can show you. Okay, see, I have the admin privilege only. So if I have a super admin privilege, I can control all the users. I can create more users. I can tag them to groups. Okay, so that they will only get less responsibilities and less privileges within this application. Okay, or the console basically. Okay, so this is how a firewall UI looks like. Okay, so I can share you one documentation and the links on this particular chat, so that you can also try it your own in your PCs. Okay, then one thing which I want to show you is,
So, what are your reviews on PF Sense?
yeah, pfSense is a open source good firewall. Later yesterday only I thought like I should have used it to demonstrate rather than using 40 gate. The reason why I used 40 gate is we have enough support and a lot of what do you call it, blocks and how to setting it up is available, so that as initial setup for you students, it would be very easy to make your own a firewall kind of setup. But as I mentioned, this evaluation feature doesn't have much features, but you can even try pfSense, which also has a lot of videos and other things available in the internet. pfSense is
Still,
also,
sir, it's fine. FortiGate is one of the best one.
yeah, yeah, correct, correct. Yeah, it depends on how you configure each and every brand. They have their ups and downs. So it depends whether you have enough money to buy the license, then you can go for the branded ones, or you can go for the open source one as well. Okay, so something which I want to show is, uh, so as I mentioned, this uh, LAN which I have configured in the interface. One second. This particular LAN is configured in this port to interface, right? So I have added this particular machine in that particular network. Okay, so the IP address of this machine is this one, right? Okay, so let me try a trace route. One second. What is that IP address? 192 dot 110.1, right? Sorry, 192. So what I'm trying to show you here is, if we try to check the route or try to ping the LAN, uh, this connection is established to that particular firewall interface. There's some. thing within network. Okay, so what I was trying to, it's not working. Okay, so what I was trying to show you there is like, if we ping any, or if you try to trace route any device or an IP within that particular LAN, we can see that the first the connection goes to the firewall, then it goes through that particular interface and it is established. Okay, so that's a slight demo and introduction to the firewall topic from my side. I believe everyone was able to understand and grasp at least something, and hope you take it as a motivation and will try it on your own. Thank you everyone. Any
Yeah, sure, sir.
questions?
Students, do you have any questions?
No, ma'am, not yet.
Everything was so clear, sir.
Thank you then. Thank you everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, all this theoretical part were very informative, and even you have shown how lively we are going to set up this firewall into our system. It was indeed informative and very useful, sir. Thank you so much for that. Okay, and I thank Department Computer Science and Engineering, AML and CS, Cybersecurity, and Future Tense Technology for organizing Industrial Connect session every Saturday. We are definitely grateful to our resource person today, Mr. Nadeem, for being a part of our Industrial Connect today. And thanks are due to our HOD, Dr. Vivek, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Artificial Intelligence, Machine Learning, and Cybersecurity. And I really thank all our team members, that is, our faculty members, for supporting in all the sense. So thank you so much, students, for joining in the session, and have a good weekend. Good night. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, students. Thank you.